Hi, welcome back. In this section, we will be dealing with the selection, which is choosing certain parts of the image. I will be teaching you the various ways of selection and how we can best select certain parts of an image. First, when would you want to make a selection? When you want to apply a filter to only a particular area, use the brush tool on a selected area, or superimpose an object onto another image. To do all of this, you need to first make a selection. For example, if you want to move the pen in this picture all the way to the top, or duplicate this pen, you can make a selection of the pen like this, and use the move or duplicate action only on the selected area. Selecting is a very basic technique, which is very useful for doing almost anything. Thus, this will be a very important lesson for you. Let's start! Let's start with the basics, using the marquee tools over here. Right-click over here and you can see that there are 4 kinds of marquee tools for you to choose from. Let's start with the first one, the rectangular marquee tool. To make a rectangular selection using this, you just have to click and drag. The selected area is indicated by the dotted lines over here. Do note that if you were to make a new selection, the old selection will disappear. Now, you can hold down your Shift button while using the rectangular marquee tool to draw a perfect square. Then, you can also choose the other option, the elliptical marquee tool, to draw an oval shape, and holding down the Shift button will allow you to draw the perfect circle. After drawing the shapes, you can move the dotted region around, but make sure you are still on the marquee tool. If you are on the move tool and you move the selected region around, the selected area will move as well, like this. So, it will be useful if you have a particular area you want to move. Now, notice this checkbox at the back here. This is how Photoshop represents transparency. As you can see, when you move an area away, the area where it was previously will become transparent. You can reverse selecting an area by going to Select and clicking Deselect. Or you could use the shortcut Ctrl-D or Command-D for Mac. Bear in mind that once you deselect, the layer will now act as a single layer. I'll now teach you how you can duplicate objects in your pictures. First, select a region and press Ctrl-J, the shortcut for duplicate. Notice that you have an extra layer duplicated, which consists of the selected region you just made. Now, you can move this area to where you want the duplicated object to be. To make a clean duplicate, apply what you've learned about layer masks to delete unwanted edges, like I've taught you back in section 3. You can combine selections from different parts of the image by holding down the Shift button until you see a small plus sign. Then, you can draw another region you'd like to select, and you'll be automatically added to your current selection. Similarly, you can deselect a certain portion of the selection as well by holding down the alternate key on Windows or the Option key on Mac so that a small subtraction sign will appear. As you can see, the area will be deleted from the current selection. Once you have made a selection, any action you do in Photoshop will apply to this selection only. It acts as if you are selecting a new temporary layer consisting of only that selected area. If I use a brush tool and paint, you can see that only the selected area gets painted. If I were to go to Image Adjustment and make some adjustments, only the selected area will have the effects. In section 2, we learned how to apply filters on entire images. Now, you can apply filters on only parts of your desired images through your selection tool. Moving on, another useful function I would like to introduce to you is the Select Inverse function. The Select Inverse function is located at the top under the Select menu. What inverse does is, as its name implies, inverse your selection. So if you select this small region here and click Select Inverse, everything outside this small selection is now selected instead. This is convenient for situations where you have small parts of the picture you don't need and can simply select those areas instead. Lastly, I'd like to show you what these remaining marquee tools do. The single row and single column tools. They allow you to select 1 pixel wide of row or column across the screen, like this for the single row function. One whole horizontal row of 1 pixel is selected, but you have to zoom in to see it. I rarely use it though, and I doubt you'll use it as much as well. To summarize, we have learned how to make rectangular and elliptical selections, as well as how to deselect by pressing Select, Deselect, or the shortcut Ctrl-D. We learned how to use the Select Inverse function, and we also learned how to duplicate a selected area by first making a selection and pressing Ctrl-J. We learned how to combine selections together by holding the Shift button, and how to delete a selected region by holding the Alternate or Option button. I understand that this might be quite a lot to take in, but don't worry, we will revisit these functions quite frequently in the subsequent videos because they are all the core techniques for Photoshop. Previously, we have learned about the rectangular and elliptical marquee tools. But what if I want a more precise control over the area I want to select? In this video, I will be introducing to you 3 lasso tools which allows you to have final control over the area you are selecting. First, let's look at the lasso tool. The lasso tool is a freehand selection tool. Hold down on the left of your mouse and drag to make a selection. You can close the selection by going back to the starting point. If you do not return to the starting point, Photoshop will just draw a straight line from where you released your mouse to the original starting point. You can combine the lasso tool with the rectangular tool to either delete or add to your current selection. The lasso tool is good for very fine control over what to select. Next, let's look at the polygonal lasso tool. This tool lets you draw a straight line from one point to the next in this manner until you return to the original and close the loop. If your selection is still not closed yet, you can double-click. Photoshop will automatically draw a straight line, close up your loop. You can hold the Shift button when you move your mouse to draw a perfect vertical or horizontal line like this. The polygonal lasso tool is good for making selections with straight edges, such as this paper here, or even this wallet over here. However, you'll need to touch up a little by adding or removing unwanted areas. Lastly, let's look at the magnetic lasso tool. This tool will attempt to trace the edge of an object in your picture. For example, if I select this arrow here and move my mouse around, you'll notice that you'll automatically select the arrow instead of the background. However, if your object's color is quite similar to the background's color, like in the case of this iPhone over here, the magnetic lasso tool will not be as accurate, as you'll have a hard time differentiating the object. In the subsequent videos, I will be introducing a few more selection tools. However, do remember that the different selection tools all serve the same purpose, but are best used in different situations. See you in the next video! In this video, we will be looking at the 2 selection tools here, namely the Quick Selection and Magic Wand tools. Let's start with the Quick Selection tool, which allows us to quickly select over an area. This is a tool that most would use for their first selection, as it is simple and fast. You can increase or decrease the tip of the selection by going here and choosing the size. Similar to the brush tool, you can use the left and right brackets to adjust the size. This is one of the most useful shortcuts and is applicable to many different tools. You can also combine the selection tool with the lasso tool by either adding or removing areas. Recall that you can do this by holding Shift to add more selection or Alternate or Options to remove a selection. Let's move on to the next selection tool, which is the Magic Wand tool over here. Click on this tool once and it will select an area for you. When you left-click an area with this tool, Photoshop will sample the pixel you've selected and select surrounding pixels with similar color and tone. So, if you were to select the black arrow here, Photoshop will sample all the surrounding areas of the current layer and select those with similar color and tone, which in this case is the entire black arrow only. You can adjust the sensitivity of the Photoshop calculation by adjusting the tolerance level over here. The lower the tolerance, the stricter Photoshop will be at selecting pixels, so it will only select those that are very similar to the pixel you just clicked. Keep the anti-alias over here checked, as this tells Photoshop to make smoother selections over curved surfaces. Contiguous will ensure that the selected area will be together in one large chunk. If you uncheck it, the Magic Wand tool will select all the areas in the current layer that is similar to the one you just clicked, which in this case is black. You can see that different portions will be selected. To avoid such scattered areas, you should tick the contiguous to select a continuous area. Next, sample all layers over here allows you to make selections on more than one layer. The sample size sets how Photoshop selects the pixel when you left-click it. Point Sample tells Photoshop to look at the point directly where you click. So, Point Sample is sampling one exact pixel. If you want Photoshop to look at more pixels, simply select any of these. For example, select the 3x3, and when you left-click, Photoshop will use the surrounding 3x3 pixels and return the average color and tone and use that as a criteria for selecting other pixels. The Magic Wand tool is extremely useful and accurate if your photos do not have many different shades of colors. It is perfect for pictures such as this one, where the picture mainly consists of solid colors. Because there is only one solid color, you can use the Magic Wand tool as a quick way to change colors. It works extremely well in such situations. If you have logos, you can also use Magic Wand tool to target a color to change. But if your photo is mainly taken from camera, there are many different shades of colors, which makes the tool less useful. So, choose your selection tool wisely. In this video, we will be going through the pen tool as a selection tool. Before we start, I would like to highlight that unlike other selection tools we have seen, the pen tool is not designed only for selection. It is designed for many different functions. However, we will only be covering how it allows selection in this video. Let's start. First, select the pen tool over here and make sure you set this option to Path and not Shape. The basic use case of the pen tool is first, click on the screen and click on it again to link the points together. Then, when you're done with all the points, link it back to the starting point to make a loop. Now, you will notice that the selected area is not a dotted line. In fact, this line over here is called a path. It is not a selection, but with a closed path here, you can go ahead and right-click and press the Make Selection option. Before you click OK, do keep this anti-alias checked, as it makes the curve smoother. Then click OK, and you'll see that the path becomes a selection, and the usual dotted line we have will appear. Do take note that the right click and the make selection options are only visible if you are using the pen tool. So, make sure your pen tool is still selected if you want to make a selection from it. Deleting paths is very simple, and you can do so by pressing Enter or just clicking the right click and selecting Delete Path. Now, what makes the pen tool so powerful is how it can select round edges accurately. You can left click, hold your click, and drag it at different tangents to make it a curve. Can you see how the pen tool is able to generate the curve selection? Hold the Control button and you will be able to move the path. When you click on the lines of a path, it will automatically add a point for you. In previous versions of Photoshop, such as CS6, this feature might not be available. So instead, just hold the alternate button and you will be able to add a point. After closing the path, go ahead and make a selection. Next, this feather radius here allows you to select the amount of pixels you set aside for the softness. Let me demonstrate this with a 5 pixel radius. Now that that's done, I can paint over it. Unlike our previous selections, you can see that there is this softness in the selection, and that is what the feather does. See the difference between that selection and this same selection with 0 feather radius? If you are trying to blend certain selections, selecting a radius of 1 or 2 pixels would be a good idea. Before we move on to the next video, let me show you some things you can do with the pen tool. This shape here is created from scratch with a pen tool. I'll be making it again using only the pen tool. I'd encourage you to try and trace this shape out with the pen tool to practice as well. In the original shape, the body color is done with a gradient overlay, which we will look at in subsequent sections. But for this video, a solid color will be sufficient. When tracing this shape, a good tip will be to create only half the shape. Then duplicating the layer before flipping it by pressing Ctrl T to free transform and joining it with the other half. This is to ensure symmetry. As you can see, the pen tool is very flexible and can be used to create many interesting shapes and designs. Let's sum up this section by looking through what we have gone through in the past few videos. We have learnt the different marquee tools, the different lasso tools, quick selection, and magic wand, as well as the pen tool for selection. These tools serve the same purpose, and that is to select an area for you. All of them exist to fit in different scenarios, and the selection tool you choose depends on what you are selecting and also your preference. There is no fixed rule as to which tool you have to use. It mostly is just your personal preference. We have seen that by making a selection, you can apply a filter to only that selected area. A useful tip is to select an area and press Ctrl J to duplicate only that region. Then, you can do whatever you want with the duplicated layer. To recap, you can combine selections by pressing down the Shift key and drawing a new selection. Then, deleting away selections by pressing the alternate button. You can unselect an area by going over to Select, Deselect, or simply using the shortcut Ctrl D or Command D. You can also make an inverse selection by going to Select, Select Inverse. Before I move on to the next section, let me give you a very useful tip. Selection is not very accurate, and it is difficult to rely on selection to cut and paste an image. What you can instead do is use the lasso tool to select a rough area, then move this area into the new image. Then, we use the layer mask to delete the edges. Because layer mask uses a brush, we can control the size of the brush, and therefore, we can erase the unwanted edges very cleanly. The selection tool seldom gives a very clean selection of an object or area. We can always hold down the alternate key to delete the unwanted area, but this takes too much time and is often not worth the effort. I hope this tip is useful. In the next section, we will look at the highly anticipated clone tool. See you there! Welcome to the second case study. To superimpose another image onto different images and make the overall image look realistic is easy in Photoshop. And that is what we will be looking at in this video. In this case study, I will be showing you how I will superimpose another person into a group photo, such that it looks like the person was with the group. I'll be using the two photos over here, this group photo and this lady here. Now, let's start. I'll first select this lady using the lasso tool and drag it into the group photo. I'm not using the pure selection tool to select this female because it is hard to be precise and accurate with it. So, the best way would be to use layer mask to delete unwanted backgrounds. We use layer mask to ensure that should there be any accidental erasure, we can undo it anytime. While cleaning the background of the lady, you will want to be precise and accurate. If done carelessly, your overall image will look fake. As it's a tedious process and takes a few minutes, I will be fast forwarding the cleaning process here. As you become more comfortable with Photoshop, processes like this will become easier and faster. When cleaning, I zoom in and out to have more precise control and zoom out to see the overall image. I move the screen around by holding the spacebar, clicking, and dragging the mouse. I use a soft brush to clean the edges between the shirt and the background so that the transition is smooth. Toggle the size of your brush by using the left bracket and right bracket shortcut. This process may take as short as a few minutes to as long as 30 minutes or even an hour, depending on the complexity of the image that you are cleaning up. This image is quite simple and not very complex, so it's not very big and it does not require much treatment. Once done, I will position it in the center and ensure that the proportion is acceptable. I will also duplicate this layer to save it as a backup just in case. I won't want to clean up again given the time spent on it. Afterwards, I will blend the superimposed image with the original image. For this image, not much edits needs to be done as the superimposed image and the original image are quite uniform in color tone. So, I will apply the layer mask and merge the two layers. Afterwards, go to Filter and filter the original image. Doing so ensures that you apply a filter to your entire image, and this can help in blending the superimposed image with the original image, since you are applying the same degree of filter to both of them. Now, it looks quite decent already. You may wish to further apply other filters to this image, but I am satisfied with this. To make sure the knowledge sinks in, I will show you one more example. In this example, I want to superimpose this bag onto this lady, such that it looks like she's carrying this bag. I'll first need to do a cleanup to delete everything except for the bag. For this picture, the background is a little distracting, and it will be hard to see the areas that have been cleaned and the areas which haven't. So, I will create a new layer, paint it white, and put it below the back layer. This facilitates the cleaning a lot. Now, all it takes is again, patience and a little time. This part is fast forwarded as well. For now, I won't need to worry about the size or position of the bag and only focus on removing the background because I can always resize it again later. Do note that you could use the selection tool, but using selection will not give you very precise outlines, which is why we are doing it manually using layer mask and round brush. When you want to superimpose an image, try your best to get a picture at the correct position. Now, it is more or less done. I'll delete the white background since I finished cleaning. Then, I'll drag this bag and position it on this lady's shoulder. I want the stripe of the bag to align with the shoulder, so I'll use free transformation by pressing Ctrl T, right click and select Distort. Then, distort this corner so that the stripe lies nicely on top of the shoulder. This looks pretty natural. So we're done. I will merge the two layers and apply filters to the entire image again. However, do note that if the bag's color tone is slightly different from the other image's color tone, you will need to adjust it such that the overall image blends in well. That is how you can superimpose pictures. All it takes is a little bit of practice to get used to cleaning, and it definitely requires some patience. Don't be disheartened if your photo seems fake on the first few times. Try color corrections to blend in your overall image. As you use Photoshop more, your skills will advance and you will learn new things along the way. So, no worries and take your time.